and welcome back to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about Planet of the Spiders, written by Robert Solomon and directed by Barry Letts. This is a 6-part finale to the John Pertwee era, as this is his last story. He left the show because of the amount of just stuff that was happening in his life. I mean, Katie Manning, a close friend of his, left the show last season, and then Robert Delgado passed away during the same time, and so he felt like it was his time to leave. So this season with Sarah Jane was actually his last, and he probably brings out one of his best performances here. Anyway, Planet of the Spiders is considered by a lot of people to be a great, fantastic story. However, there are a group of people that, not that they find it bad, they do like elements of it, they do like the majority of it. However, they think the story is a bit slow, a bit weak in certain places, and just doesn't flow particularly too well. And it brings me no joy to say I'm one of those people. It has some really great moments, but it's a bit weak on story and pacing. But let's delve in and just talk about this. Is it? So the first thing that happens is that we get reintroduced to Mike Yates. After his betrayal of with the dinosaur situation, he went basically on a soul search for himself, and he wanted to do meditation. However, when he went to this meditation unit, he discovered something sinister is happening, doing some meditation in secret and gaining power through a blue light in this like weird circle thing. So he contacts Sarah Jane Smith to try and convince Unit what's happening, because he can't tell the Brigadier, because the last time they met he put a gun to his face. And whilst this is going on, the Doctor and the Brigadier are at like a talent show, and they meet one of the psychic there, and they interview him back at the Doctor's office, which I believe it's the same set as the Three Doctors, but with a different floor, if memory serves me right. It's got the same, everything's in the same place, it's just the floor's a bit strange. And the Doctor basically explains that he knows that this guy is a real psychic, he's not just doing it as an act, and his experiments lead him to understanding more about psychic abilities, and so this guy helps him with it. But the Doctor gets a mail from Jo Grant, who actually makes an impact in this story as she delivers back the Metebelis crystal last seen in The Green Death. And the Doctor gives it to the guy, and he kind of has like a weird attack. And whilst this is going on, in the same back with the meditation center, the people are meditating, and giant spiders come out. The hints in the title, Planet of the Spiders, you know. And then the guy dies, and basically the Doctor has to work out what's going on. And Sarah Jane comes into Unit to try and explain to the Doctor what's happening, because she actually seen the giant spiders, but not before being introduced to what's his name? By being introduced to Tommy, a mentally challenged man who has what's the word? That basically he's got like a mind of a child. And the scenes with him and Sarah Jane, I find it really sweet, and how she is like, we're playing a secret game called Secret, and it's a secret that I'm here, so thing, which would really foreshadow her role as in the Sarah Jane Adventures, where she is a hero to children all over Britain. So yeah. When she goes back to UNIT, I really do love this scene when the Doctor's trying to work out what's happening with this crystal, and Sarah Jane is explaining it to him. The Doctor had a machine, and he knows that the guy's last images in his mind were spiders, and that's what killed him, for the fright of spiders. And Sarah's like explaining away, and he's like half listening. And then she mentions the word spider. The Doctor gets like, what? Now Sarah, tell me everything right from the beginning. And Sarah's face is just like, oh, for God's sakes, Doctor. So, yeah, there are some great moments like that. And they're talking about it and trying to work out what's going on. But whilst this is going on, the giant spider actually attaches itself to one of the people working at the meditation centre. I can't remember for the life of me what his name was, but the guy who plays him, see if it's on here, no. The guy who plays him is a bit hit and miss. He is the voice of Boss from the Green Death, so it's another tie to the Green Death. But here I think he plays it really over the top. He is the quintessential villain, but I think the story wants you to like not empathise with him, but wants you to at least get his motivations. And apart from one scene which I don't think explains it all too well, he's just like some mad guy with power. So, but yeah, and basically this spider has given him not only psychic powers, so he can see things with his mind, but he can also shoot lightning out of his fingers, which might have been an inspiration to George Lucas for the Emperor's powers in Return of the Jedi. Who knows? So he discovers the crystal that the spiders want is in UNIT, and so he goes into UNIT, and it has easily my favourite scene in all of classic Who, in which he just goes up to Sergeant Benton and punches him right in the gut, to which Benton just collapses onto the floor. Oh, I don't know why, but it's just so... It is just so funny. But anyway, he takes the crystal from under UNIT's nose, and the Doctor goes on a chase for him. A lot of people... There's a lot of hit and misses with this with people. A lot of people like it, and a lot of people don't. I think I can see why people like it. There's a lot of what's going on. It starts off with a chase on foot. However, he gets into the what does he get into? He gets into the Hoomobile, which makes a return from Invasion of the Dinosaurs. So there's a lot of elements from previous stories, especially from this season and Green Death, are all colliding into this one story, and he goes off into it, and Benton takes Bessie and chases him, and the Doctor takes a gyroscope to chase him, like a little baby helicopter, and it starts off like really fun and interesting and stuff, but there's never really any progress until this guy abandons the the Whomobile, and the Doctor, Sarah, Brigadier, Sergeant Benton, and a police officer just stand around talking about what they're going to do if they've lost him. But the guy then, whilst the Doctor's not looking, goes into his gyroscopter and flies off. And the Doctor then goes into the Whomobile with Sarah, and it reveals that this thing can fly! Yeah! Oh man, this is so hilarious. And I love the close-ups of the guy's face, like on the plane, just smiling to himself as if like, yes, I've gotten away. He looks around the corner, looks back, what the hell? And you just see it on a clearly like green screen. The Doctor and Sarah Jane just like in the ship. It's just, oh, it's just so funny. So yeah, we go from one chase scene to on the ground in cars to a chase scene in the air, only for the gyrocopter to be running out of gas, so he has to land it, and he steals a boat and goes on sea, to which the Doctor then takes a possession of a hovercraft, which is like a half boat, but it can also go on land, which was really really cool thing in the 1970s. It might look a bit silly now, but anyway, so then you get the chasing on the river, which so you get a lot of different vehicles, different types of chasing, and the last one I think is the best, because you get some pretty cool stunt work. You get the Doctor basically skiing it on land, and then there's one where somebody is like sleeping and he lies on the floor, and the Doctor then takes the hovercraft and just like does it over him on land, just like drives over him without the guy being harmed. So that was pretty cool. But I think the big problem with this action scene, it lasts for half an episode. Literally, it's like from exactly midway to into the second episode, right until the cliffhanger, and there's nothing really progressing about the action scene. It's literally most of it is just them keeping track of where this guy is and following him by like a 5 or 6 meters away from him, which does kind of get pretty boring after a while. Maybe it should have worked if they had more stunts, or my suggestion would have been to make it much more interesting, swap it around, have it him chasing the Doctor, and the Doctor's basically using all of these stuff to try and get away from him. That would have been so much better, in my opinion. But that's not what happens, and the Doctor gets onto the boat that he was on. However, when he gets on there, he's disappeared, and he's transported himself, his physical self, back to the meditation centre. So this chase scene was completely for nothing. It was the definition of filler. So yeah, one half of an episode just completely wasted. However, we slowly get to learn that these spiders are from Metebelis 3, much later on from when the Doctor was on there, back in The Green Death. So the Doctor tries to go to the centre to try and stop this man. However, he gets transported to Metebelis through a little like mat thing that has powers, I guess. But Sarah Jane gets stuck on it, and she also transports to Metebelis 3. So the Doctor has to take the TARDIS to Metebelis 3, and the story then splits from Sarah and Mike and the Doctor to the Doctor and Sarah Jane on Metebelis, to Mike working out how to stop this guy's basically his henchmen, who are like 50-50 on him. on their boss basically. And whilst this is going on, there's like a leader of the meditation who really doesn't know anything about what's happening, but he has to report to his leader. And there's a lot of great scenes in which he's trying to explain his philosophy on this meditation, and there's some great lines in where he says stuff like, if someone really looks hard into themselves, they will then experience an extraordinary amount of joy by discovering that they never existed, or something like that. Something like Tibetan mythology and ideologies like that. So, yeah. So the Doctor then goes to Metabolus 3 to try and save Sarah. Back on Earth, the guy had actually lost the crystal. Tommy had taken it, which he looked into the crystal, and it seems to have cured him. I personally really didn't like this element of the story. It seemed a bit like it's trying to say that I don't know, hard to explain. So yeah, I'm not going to explain it because I'm not very good at this. So I'm going to save myself the embarrassment and just... anyway, so the Doctor lands on Metabolus 3 and he tracks Sarah down to the Spider's base, and he goes there and he gets captured himself. And whilst he's there, they leave Sarah go for some reason. And the Doctor escapes himself by using a trick taught to him by Harry Houdini, which is really cool. And he finds Sarah again, all fine and well, who's also seen to have gained teleporting powers, as she grabs the Doctor's hands and it takes her back to the village. I'm going to gloss over the whole village subplot, in which the Eight Legs control a group of human slaves, basically called the Two Legs. I'm going to gloss over it because A, there's just so much to this plot, and B, it's not that interesting, to be honest. It's these characters are very dull, one note, and yeah, just something, just they don't really work. Apart from, I really like the father character, however. He gets kidnapped earlier on in the story, and he talks to Sarah Jane when she's kidnapped. And you start off, he just seems like he's just like your average old man character who sacrifices himself to save his son, and lies and stuff. But then when you actually meet him in the Spider's case, he is just so accepted that he is going to die, and he's so chillaxed about it. But I do find it really amusing. I don't think you will ever see him get saved, actually, come on to think about it. You see the start of his rescue, but I don't think you actually see him be saved. I don't think they ever saved him. That's really funny. I digress. So the Doctor takes Sarah back to Earth, and they meet up with Tommy again, who, like I said, has been cured, and that's just a load of rubbish, thanks to the crystal. And he says he's taken it to the Hermit, basically the leader of this organisation, who hasn't been seen yet. And so the Doctor goes up to see him, and they have a little talk, and we soon realise that this guy is actually the Hermit that the Doctor was talking about in the Time Monster, I believe. He's basically his old teacher back on Gallifrey, another Time Lord. And he explains that the guy that was working for him, the the guy spouting all the Tibetan stuff, is a member of himself. I believe the guy was called Choji. But yeah, anyway. And that his time to regenerate is coming up soon. And they explain what regeneration is. Now it's important to note, this is actually the first time we hear the word regenerate to refer to the cycle in which the Time Lord changes his appearance. So here, basically this is where most of the great establishing stuff about the Doctor Who mythology basically wraps up. So now he's a Time Lord, he's from Gallifrey, and the process is called regenerating. Yeah, and they explain a bit about it in the last episode, and Sarah Jane starts talking weird and how she really wants the crystal, and it turns out that she's actually possessed by one of the spiders, and she shoots the Doctor with the lightning. And Elizabeth Sladen's acting with that creepy spider voice is just so goddamn cool. Now, an earlier scene I forgot to mention has the Doctor going into the cave to meet the Great One, a giant spider with mass intelligence. And she seems to control the Doctor through mental powers, where she makes him walk around like a soldier, and she says she can sense fear in him. And the monk's talking about how the only way to defeat her is by conquering your fear. You have to go back and actually give her the crystal. Years ago, when I used to watch this on VHS, I always got the impression that the Doctor's fear is spiders. But rewatching this, I don't know where I got that. It's kind of clear that his fear is being controlled. That if he goes back there and does what she said, he's basically given up his freedom, which really ties into the Doctor's character. That, you know, the third Doctor's character, that he once, his freedom was taken away from him. He's basically rebelling against the Time Lords. He was given back his freedom, but only like partially. And it's basically him coming to terms with the fear that is fear of being controlled and being manipulated. So the Doctor has to take the crystal back to Metabolus, and the Doctor then meets the Great One in her physical form. The last time he met her, he only heard her voice in the caves. And though the actual keying effect, the green screen effect, looks a bit rubbish on Jon Pertwee, the actual spider on those like stairs and its legs, like poking out up to the walls and stuff, with this crystal thing on top of it, looks really goddamn cool. And the Doctor basically explains that if this perfect crystal would bring her mental capacities to infinity, and she would basically become the most powerful being in the universe. But the Doctor also explains that it will easily destroy her, but she's like, I don't care, you're lying, and she takes the crystal and puts it back, and she starts having basically a mental breakdown. Now, another thing I forgot to mention is that in the previous scene, when he first meets the Great One, she explains that this cave has properties that destroys the cells of people that go there. So basically he's being weakened and slowly dying whilst he's there. And when he comes back, he's basically sacrificed himself. And the caves will start collapsing onto each other, and the Doctor runs off. Thinking about it, it might have it might have a really weak plot and a really weak pacing, but probably episode 6 is probably one of the best last episodes of a Doctor Who serial, in my opinion. A lot of great a lot of great moments happen with the Doctor meeting the monk, the Doctor going to meet the Great One, and then the finale in which Sarah Jane goes back to the Doctor's office, his laboratory, saying that she's like gonna miss him and stuff. The TARDIS appears. He comes out, he's very weak. Jon Pertwee just absolutely nails it. And he says he has to fight his fear. He collapses onto the floor. Sarah Jane stands over his body, crying. And the Doctor looks up to him, like with the Monster of Peladon. He goes, Sarah, tears, Sarah Jane? No, don't cry. Whilst this life ends. And collapses. And she closes his eyes and, it's death. However, the ghost of Choji, who we see later, earlier on, actually the hermit died, and so he regenerated into Choji. So now he is this Toji character, and his like an astral projection appears into the room with Brigadier and Sarah Jane, and explains that he is a Time Lord. It's not death for him. Well, he is dead, but not really the end for a Time Lord. And the process of regeneration is starting. He'll give it a little push, which might make him very erratic, which we know what he means. And so he summons the power to the Doctor. They chase after him. They turn around. Brigadier, I think it started. Well, here we go again. Camera cuts down, and we see Jon Pertwee saying goodbye to the role that he's been playing for 5 years. And we get introduced to Tom Baker. Absolutely phenomenal scene. The acting is incredible. I love how there's no music until the actual regenerating part. It really makes it somber. The fact that Jon Pertwee finished on half a line whilst this life ends, and he doesn't get to finish his sentence. Gold. This is perfect written. The last episode of Planet of the Spiders is just fantastic. But what lets it down, what stops it from being the best regeneration, actually it is the best regeneration in terms of story. I think it's easily the most saddest and the most heart-breaking regeneration, but doesn't alienate the future Doctor. But what ruins it is the actual regenerating effect. It's just simply a fade, and that's it. Kind of a little bit of a bummer, because the regenerations have become a big part of the series, and people really like the special effects of the regenerations. So yeah, we say goodbye to Jon Pertwee. The 5 years that he did were absolutely fantastic. He has some of, if not the greatest Doctor Who stories under his run. He had 3 of the best companions, with the serious scientist almost his equal Liz Shaw, with his baffling but really sweet and innocent, basically a teacher assistant kind of character with Jo Grant, and having the feminist, no-nonsense Sarah Jane Smith under his belt. So he had some very great strides. He was also grateful that he got to work with the amazing Robert Delgado as the Master, being the only Doctor. Yeah, he was the only Doctor to interact with Delgado's Master, and he had even some of the best Dalek stories. But we got to say goodbye to Jon Pertwee. No one could ever replace him. So when they recasted the Doctor, they went in a completely opposite direction, going from a James Bond gentleman to a bohemian, crazy. You can't even describe it apart from it's Tom Baker. So that's Planet of the Spiders. It's a bit weak in terms of plot, and there's a lot of filler in it. Story I don't think is as strong as most Pertwee stories. However, that last episode just makes it up for it. And there's some great moments with Mike Yates, which I believe is actually his final appearance, and Sarah Jane, and of course, the Doctor. So, there you go. So join me next time where we get introduced to the new Doctor. We see a Nazi-like organisation in modern day life, and would you like a jelly baby? So join me next time for Robot. See you then on the Doctor Who Marathon. Ta-da!